All right, guys, we have a Melody on the line today. She is the CRO, if I can talk, of FinListics. She's been at the helm for the last 7 years, finishing a book, working on a ton of projects. We might assume she might have slight ADHD. You never know. So, Melody, I would love to get you introduced today and really just start kind of with your journey. I know you're highly intellectual and you've had quite the career. So yeah, I'd love to kind of, walk people through, getting to that C-level chief revenue officer role. And then kind of dive a little bit more about, what you guys are working on nowadays.
Sure. So gosh, when you start thinking back in timelines and years, you're like, that sounds like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
but so this is, I guess I started on the scene in 2001. I moved went to undergrad at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, and took a job out of the gates, moved down to Atlanta, which is where I am now and have been, and started off with IBM in an inside sales role.
Mhm.
Fantastic training, great program, learned a ton. They're second to none in terms of the way they roll things out. So for the first 6 months, I wasn't allowed to talk to a customer at all. Spent a lot of time understanding the methods. How do you show up in a credible way? Because right or wrong, when you're being asked to call on a certain level and you don't show up like that, it kind of damages credibility. You want to be really protective of that. So, did the inside sales thing did my time, so to speak, on that, but learned a lot, right? That's not an easy job. And then
Very hard. Yeah.
it's a very hard job.
Yeah. Interesting. So you start there, doing sales. What's next for you? Like you start,
Yeah.
getting good at it pretty quickly.
Yeah, so then went along the way, I thought, okay, I want to get my MBA. So I went to Emory University backyard here in Atlanta, got my MBA. And from there, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Because at that point I had 10 years at IBM, and it was really a decision point. It was, I could stay there for the duration of my career, or I could look to do something else. So in total, I was at IBM for 12 years, and I decided it was a very difficult decision to leave. But I thought it was worthwhile exploring other opportunities, and I did. So I spent a bit of time at Gartner. If you know Gartner, great brand, and research analyst, that kind of thing, the creator of the Magic Quadrant. Spent some time there, and then I ran across, well, interestingly, IBM's a client. So when I was an IBMer, I used FinListics. I used it actively in my role there. So when Steven, the founder of FinListics, approached me to say, hey, we're moving out of this lifestyle business into we want to grow this, and I need someone to help me grow this. Would you be interested? I said, sure, I'd be
Well, how
interested.
were you? And just to ground for the people listening, how were you using FinListics at that time? At IBM.
Yeah, so well, certainly the education, executive conversations. How do you have these conversations with the right people at the right time? How do you change your message from the CIO wants to hear about this, the CMO wants to hear about this? As you know, there are so many stakeholders involved with every deal nowadays. You can't just stick with with your friends. You have to open that aperture. And in order to do that, you have to have credibility in a different way, right? So that was the foundation of the education, and then also used Client IQ, which is our sales intelligence platform that helps you understand your customers' business and financial performance relative to their own historical performance, relative to their industry, and relative to their peers or competitors. So you get these insights so quickly that you can just go and share with your customer, and it builds instant credibility. You can get the information like this, and it builds instant credibility. So having used it and understood how effective it was just kismet, if you will, that I could come back, and I would never have guessed. You know what I mean? I would never have guessed that I would run across FinListics, or that FinListics would run across me.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll dive into that. To take it back real quick.
Yeah,
You're at IBM, you're 10, 12 years, invested in them, and you're trying to make the decision of, do I stay here or do I, you know, go see what's out there?
right.
How did you make that decision? Because there's a lot of people that, I talk to, I do career coaching as well as recruiting, and
Hmm.
it's like, do I reach out for something new, or is it the other side of it is, bird in the hand, two in the bush, right? So
It's a
yeah,
tough
I
one,
wonder.
really. I mean, right? Because there's the whole grass is greener. Am I making a bad decision? And all these different things. And one of my mentors gave me some fantastic advice, which was, don't, no matter what happens, I'll support you, but make sure you do this. Do not run from something, run to something. And so as opportunities would come across, I would say, is this something I want to run to? And a lot of times I said, no, this is not something I want to run to. So, those wind up being no's, but then, the other opportunity came along, and it was just clear, like the timing was right. It felt right. You always have the mindset of, well, you can always go back if you want to, right? So you
Mhm.
had that kind of security, but that advice was really the lens through which I made those decisions, or really make any career decision. Don't run from something, run to something.
Yeah, look at what's there's moving away from and there's moving towards. Yep. And so you're
Exactly.
looking at, like, okay, what am I moving towards? And for you, what was it that you were moving towards? Was it learning? Was it the curiosity that, caused you to be successful in the beginning, or what, you know?
What made me move?
Yeah, what was the move towards where you're like, "Oh, I really am moving towards this."
Yeah, the move was definitely, Gartner was very much a learning experience, because when you're having those conversations around, what's coming next, they're on the forefront of understanding technology and how it changes. And so, instead of, selling consulting services or selling product software, you're instead having very good discussions with CXOs around ideas, right? So just kind of you're positioned as a thought leader, because you have insights provided by them that they're hungry for, they pay for.
Mhm. Okay, so then you're at Gartner, and how long were you there for, and what was kind of your charge there?
Just a few years, and I was in financial services, so
Okay.
kind of stuck with the banks.
Yep. And then had FinListics already been on your radar while you were there, or kind of, walk me
Not
through.
even, I mean, no, like I didn't think, not even close. I mean, I remember where I was when I got the call. Um, and it was just interesting, because I thought, well, I wasn't expecting this. Let's learn. Let's really dig into this and figure out what's happening here, right?
Mhm.
Because there were a lot of unknowns. Moving from a lifestyle business to a real company is a whole different kind of work. So once I spent a lot of time with Stephen, the founder, talking through what this looks like. Um, and we became quite close in terms of, personally, but also business partners. We truly are business partners. And so it just felt right. And I knew there was a ton to learn. So I grabbed that opportunity.
Yeah, and how big was, his team then? Was it 10 people, 15 people? Like, how big was it?
No, I inherited a team of one.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it was Steven and then one other person.
Well, there were some other,
Yeah.
sales. There
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
there were a handful of others, but yeah, small.
Okay. So they were small, and he was what did it look like when you guys started your conversation about kind of what the vision was for it, that really caused you to say, "Okay, I want to move towards this."
Well, you can just see, if you're growing without trying to grow, think about how much you can grow when you try to grow, and put the processes in place and build that infrastructure, that can sustain growth. So it was just unlike anything, very much like an entrepreneurial sort of play, that was attractive to me.
Yeah, so, like, kind of the foundation is built, the product is good, we have a good defined, niche or pool of clientele, and we're ready to really scale this thing?
Yes, I mean, but I would go so far as to say the foundation, we had a good product. Let me just say that. Everything
Okay.
else is,
No
we have to
sales or
figure it out.
marketing foundation
Right.
for the
Like we
most
said,
part.
niche, it wasn't, we didn't identify there was not an ICP, an ideal client profile when I got on the scene, like now.
Okay,
But
so when you
that's
came
why I came.
over, yeah, when you came over, was it like just kind of a director of sales title? Like you're like, okay, I'm gonna lead the charge, or is it sales and marketing, or kind of walk me through that?
Um, it was VP of sales, but we didn't market. There was not, like I said, if you're not trying to grow, if you're marketing, you're trying to grow. So there was literally zero investment in marketing.
Okay.
Since has grown and changed, and I do have sales and I have marketing now, but there was none to speak of. So
What did you put in place in the beginning? Were you more focused on let me get more salespeople here? Or were you like, hey, let me get kind of the basics for marketing put in place, or all of it?
the marketing piece came later. The sales piece, it was what, first of all, where's our system of truth, right? Wanted to make sure I understood all of, like, what's happening with CRM, or what's not happening with CRM. How do we get that in place? What's our customer acquisition cost? Looking at the nuts and bolts of that stuff that I needed to understand, average deal size, lifetime value of the client, all these things that you really need to think about, so you can figure out how to grow. And then I spent a lot of time talking with our existing customers to understand, what do they like, what don't they like, why do they buy? And what's so funny is you think, as you're working to create, who are we going to sell to and how are we going to do it? You think but unless it sounds silly, but you think what your customers are thinking, but unless you're asking them on a regular basis, you could be running down the path with a wrong conclusion.
Mm.
And so based on that, we really started to understand, okay, who is consistently going to buy in terms of an ICP? To which industries are we most attractive? What problems are we trying to solve? And so once you identify all those, then you can figure out, okay, now culturally, who are we today? Do we want to preserve that? Do we want to change that? What does that look like? And how do we hire for cultural fit as well? So there was just a ton. I mean, it was looking at who to hire, it was looking at the process, and really starting from scratch.
Yeah, when you go back to the kind of original, client profile, what did you guys settle on?
Our client profile is B2B technology companies, sales and marketing organizations of various sizes. When I say technology, I mean everything from the hardware, the nuts and the bolts, all the way up through like management consulting. I kind of lump them in with technology, but sales organizations who are face to face and running a complex sale or need to be able to communicate to executive buyers.
So then, which you mentioned something interesting on the culture side. So then, what was the decision of, okay, what culture do we have now? And what culture do we want to create that is going to resonate or land with clients the most? So what did you guys kind of settle on?
Yeah. Well, talk about curiosity and learning and things. Stephen before he founded FinListics, was a professor of finance at Emory. And so learning is in the history and in the blood
It's
of
in
the
the
company.
DNA.
It's
Yeah.
in the DNA without a doubt. And so how do you look for that? People who are just naturally curious, people who believe that learning never stops, and people who get enthusiastic about that, to communicate it in a way that resonates with our clients. So that's a big one. Focus is another one. It's so easy, especially in growth mode, to shiny object here, shiny object there. So how do you maintain that rigor, just to say, this is what we're going to do? And so much of the time you have to say no. You have to say no to things that you want to do, but that aren't part of what the focus is. So rigor. And then we have a fantastic product, but things are changing so quickly. It's how do you always have that eye to innovation. So yeah, I mean, rigor, innovation, learning, and then at the heart of it all, we have fantastic clients. I mean, we put clients at the center of everything we do. It's not about us, it's about them. And we've just been fortunate to have the relationship with our clients that we do. And it's just unbelievably rewarding to see how we can help them transform and be successful. It's rewarding.
Yeah. Do you guys capture a lot of those, narratives or a lot of those stories? Just, curious, because
Oh
it sounds
yeah.
like it's really authentic to y'all.
Yeah. We're always looking at always talking to customers, right? So if we're looking at the product side, we're always interviewing users and pulling users and seeing who's using what and talking with them. Just their voice and their opinions are sort of our guide, our roadmap. I mean, that it's what builds our roadmap. So we have to have that guidance. And then we also talk to people who participate in our workshops as well, to come back and say, okay, it was not just you sat in this, you loved it, it's great, which it is, because we run like an 80 plus NPS for the stuff we deliver. It's literally world-class NPS and Net Promoter Score, just to be clear, which is for everyone listening, the propensity for the user or participant to enthusiastically recommend this to their peers or to someone else. So basically, do you have brand advocates or do you not? Well, an 80 is world-class. So we have those things, so you can have the satisfaction from the learning, but again, importantly, how do you come back and measure that value against the business outcomes, objectives? Did they sell more or not? is basically what that looks like. And so we spend time going back and validating that as well and measuring it to say, here's your ROI, this is what this has delivered to your organization.
Yeah, and just to get a little bit more understanding, how big is the sales team now that you're running?
We've got a consulting bench of 11, and we've got a team of 6.
And I understand the culture of learning, focus, and rigor, as well as innovation.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see working well for you guys right now? On the demand gen side, kind of on the process side. You and I talked when we first connected about SDRs versus demand gen, and I'm wondering, what your thoughts are, because there's a lot of other people, VP, CRO that listen, and they love to hear what they're whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Patriots.
We're big on digital marketing as for a key component of our lead gen strategy, for a couple of reasons. I mean, people don't. How many cold calls do you get a day?
I would say, and my phone's gotten better at recognizing when it is a potential telemarketer.
Right, because it says it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
How many cold emails do you get a day?
Too many. A lot of mine are RPO, because I work, in recruiting, and then lead gen services.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a lot of those, and you just become desensitized to it. And there is value in personalization. There is value in being very targeted, like in an account-based marketing way, or in a specific person kind of way. I must talk to Todd. I have a value proposition that is specific to Todd, right? The whole blast and cadence thing, people are desensitized to it. So, but there are ways to find yourself to be, in the digital environment, very attractive to the different buyers. It's easy to switch and be dynamic with your content. You can get personal, both on a person level and a company level. So,
share with me a little bit about that. Mine, the people that listen are running, larger sales orgs than me, right? So for me, I'm highly personalized in my outreach. also I don't need that many clients, you know what I mean? As a very small company. So, for you on the digital side, is it lead magnets? Is it SEO? Is it pay per click? Kind of how do you view that? Where do you
It
view your
is,
investments?
it is all of it, everything
All of
you
it.
said.
Yep.
SEO actually less so. We learn more about SEO than work to optimize that for lots of different reasons. But I mean, everything from trade name to pay per click to your social channels to retargeting to all of those methods are ones that we employ and on a persona basis, and just dynamically change that content. You can watch them from the organic traffic the whole way back through down to conversion, down through sale. So
Yeah. When do you turn on the outreach? Do you eventually switch to, personalized, one-on-one email and one-on-one calls, or do you like, when's that trigger or
we're
tripwire?
heavy. Well, it depends. It depends is the answer, because we're very heavy on CTAs and the type of CTAs, call to action.
Mhm.
So depending on how they engage, which CTA that triggered them, so to speak, we will engage with them in different ways, right?
Got it.
So it's just the natural path of sometimes now it's time to engage in person. If we wind up in the retargeting, then sure, then they'll get some emails, right? It just
Yep.
all depends on what
Yeah, it depends on the client. Yeah, the pool and the activity. And what are you guys dropping him into? Like, what's the CRM or like kind of a Salesforce or whatever y'all use?
we're a HubSpot shop,
Yeah. Okay. So beginning
both
to
sides,
to end HubSpot.
HubSpot,
Yep.
and that's worked well for us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty robust. Interesting. So what's on the horizon for you guys? I know we have
Ugh,
talked about a few things that y'all are working on, so I'd love to
yeah,
hear.
uh, I mean, 2020 was just so weird, like just
Yep.
weird, and 2021 continues to be weird, but I
Yep.
see the light at the end of the tunnel. So in 2020, when you're stuck at home and like, what can I do to be productive in addition to your day job? And so Stephen and I decided to write a book around the work that we've been doing. So we knocked that out in 2020. Just put our final manuscript out for final review early 2021, and the book, which is called Insight Led Selling, um, comes out in hopefully June at this point, right? June, July. So that's a big accomplishment.
That's
Um,
a like pause on that because that's a ton of work. You know
yeah,
what I mean? As a person who is in the middle of one, I don't think people who are listening really understand the amount of discipline needed to do a normal job and then carve out time to quietly write. So, what were a couple of the themes or the topics that are in that time flew by for you where you actually did enjoy? Because I know for me, just being honest, like there was maybe half of the book where I'm like, oh my God, this can't end soon enough. And then there was another half where I'm like, okay, I'm totally into what I'm writing right now and this is great.
the editing for me was the absolute worst, like,
Yeah.
right? Because if
Like the
you,
rewrites and the back and forth.
because if you, yeah, because if you think about it and you see it, right, then you have to put it down and then look at it again, and it
Yeah, the
looks the
cognitive
same, or
load
else
is
you
big.
think in the middle of the night, like, oh, that section doesn't line up with that section, or this, and then you have to go back through the manuscript and find it and move it around. It made me nuts. And it took a lot of time to do that because there were images in the book and aligning, that for me was the hardest part.
Yeah, good. I've got a buddy who's a publisher, so a really good publisher that will read through and help you, organize it is really nice. What
Yeah.
what about the topics that you guys hit on? Are there some that you kind of brought to the table that maybe defines your ethos or how you think about things?
Yeah. Well, if you think about what we call the ABCs of insight-led selling, A, adopt an executive mindset. How do you begin to understand what is top of mind for executives? How are they making financial decisions? What compels them to act? What does executive compensation look like? All of those things. B, build credibility. Back to the message of, if you come in and talk about your product or your feature or your function, the message doesn't resonate. So how do you quickly gain the business insights and points of view on both a company specific basis and industry specific basis to tell the customer something they don't know, right? I mean, how do you, they're hungry to learn something they don't know. How can you quickly get the insights to tell them something they don't know? And C, communicate with impact. How do you do that in a succinct way without going on and on and on? How do you get to the point and then back the point up with any sort of qualitative or quantitative information that they want after the point? Get to that, make a good headline, get to the headline, and have the conversation from there.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
And so the book, when is it coming out, or when's it going to be done?
I said like June, July. We don't have a date exactly yet. We're still working on nailing down the cover, actually, because every cover I see, I just am not crazy about. So
Cover art takes way longer than people think.
Just to get it right.
I know. I've been through so many mock-ups and so many revisions. It's yeah, it's definitely an art more than a science. Outside of, looking at Amazon and looking in the category and seeing what's playing well and how it's going to look, positioned against its peers.
Yeah.
So what's going on? What else are you guys excited about for
So the
2021?
other big thing is, I mentioned Client IQ. In the spring, April timeframe, we're relaunching the whole new product. It's called Client IQ 2.0, which has been a tremendous effort, months and 18 months worth of hardcore developing and planning for that. So we're quite excited about that product coming too, because it will deliver a better experience for our existing clients, but also just drive new ones because it's good stuff.
Yeah, well, explain that, for people who aren't as familiar with, your industry and what you guys are working on. Explain kind of, how that fits into the process.
Well, Client IQ is, if the process is, you need to understand your customer. If you want to ask your customer to spend money, you should probably understand how they make money, how they value money, and what compels them to spend money. Mm-hmm. Easier said than done, right? So how can you quickly look at your customer, understand your customer's business performance, financial performance, and come up with some insights around how does what I have on the truck, how does what I have to sell attach to my customer's goals, my customer strategies? How can I help them deliver against what their projects are, and how can I help to deliver not only completion of the project, but business impact, make money, save money, right? So that's what Client IQ does. It's a SaaS sales intelligence platform. It's software that just gives you the insights like that. Our users tell us that for every account that they have, Client IQ saves them on average of 8 hours of research time. So, and half the time they're not doing it anyway. Time is the most precious commodity for a seller, right? So if you can reinvest that time, be smarter in the meantime, and spend more time with your customers, it just has a water wheel effect in terms of how you can get things done.
Yeah, and it's is it an AI that's automating the research tasks and then dumping it into a database, or how does that operate?
Well, we have a team of analysts who we do our own IP and plug it in. So we have the data sources, but then we bring it in and do our thing around it and then display it out to the user.
Nice. And when did you say you guys are rolling that out?
April.
Okay, right around the corner.
Right. I mean, right around the corner. Right around the corner. Can't wait. We're excited.
Yeah. Do you have any big launches planned around it, or what's your strategy there?
We do. We are doing some big launches. You'll see here in a little bit. Keep
Congrats.
your eyes open.
Yeah,
because I already preached the virtues of digital marketing. So I'm sure something will come across your way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congrats on two things that were probably an albatross as you guys worked your way through them. So, and then what about the team itself? Are you guys growing, 2021, 2022? What do you see happening as an organization for y'all?
On all cylinders. So yeah, sales and marketing. a mix of inside and field sales.
Mhm.
And then certainly on the product team, on the IT side, that's a huge area of growth from us. Just you launch the product, but now we have to can deliver against the roadmap. So that's going to take some manpower. And
Yeah, and do you guys have a careers page up that I can link to?
I can send you some. Oh no, not currently. We have some on LinkedIn, but I'll send you something.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Melody, thank you so much for making time today. I really appreciate you laying everything out. Guys that are listening and gals, I'll put a link to the company website, and then it sounds like to their LinkedIn company page where some of the jobs are posted. Cool.
All right.
Thanks,
Good to see
Melody.
you.